Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel Tech with Yeshwanth. So in this video, let us understand what are Kafka producers and go in depth about understanding all the nitty-gritties when it comes to Kafka producers. So in the previous video, I have explained what are Kafka topics and why they are crucial in dealing with the data streaming. So in this video, let's understand producers. So if you haven't checked the video on Kafka topics, I would recommend you to go ahead and check that out. Now let's dive into Kafka producers. So in the previous video, we understood what are Kafka topics. Once a topic has been created with Kafka, so the next step is to send the data into the topic. So that is where Kafka producers comes into the play. Now let's understand what are these Kafka producers, right? So Kafka producers, these are the application that send the data into the topics itself. So if let's assume that this is a producer. So let's take this as an example. This is your producer and you have a topic here. Okay. So this is your topic and inside that you will have partitions, right? So let's take this as topic A, topic A, topic A again. Don't get confused. These are not separate topics. This is a single topic with multiple partitions. So let's assume this is partition P0, partition P2, P1 and P2. So this producer is responsible to send the message into these topic and into the partitions, right? Now we have three partitions here and this will have a separate message block log commit like this, right? So it should determine where exactly the message should go. So who will take care of that? All those things I'm going to explain in this video. So hold on till the very end. So now let's say a message with 0 comes here, 1 goes here, 2 comes here, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and so on, right? So I'll leave that for you. So applications typically integrate a Kafka client library to write to Kafka topic. So there are excellent libraries that are already existing for almost all programming languages that are popular today, including Python, Java, Go, and other languages as well. Kafka producers sends message to a topic, and these messages are distributed into partitions according to a message such as key hashing. So there is a concept called as key hashing. So we will be dealing with this in the future video. So let me know in the comments if I want to explain about this key hashing in more depth, right? So for a message to be successfully written into a Kafka topic, a producer must specify a level of acknowledgement. We also call that as ACKs in short. So this subject will be introduced in the later part of the video or the series. So hold on till the very end. Now, so after understanding Kafka producers, so let us go in depth about the Kafka message keys, right? So let's understand what are message keys. Message keys. So what are these message keys? So each event message contains an key optional, which is optional as well, and a value. So whenever you send a message, so let's take this, right? So we have this key and we also have the value. So both can be optional. So this is also optional and this can also be an optional. Now in the case where key is set to null, this is not set by a producer. So messages are distributed evenly across the partitions in a topic. So let's take this, right? So if key is equal to null is set by it's not specified by the producer, meaning messages are distributed across all the partitions in a topic, and this means messages are sent in a round robin fashion. So it takes this algorithm into application. So if you're not specifying the key at all, then it will take the round robin fashion and it will go to partition P0, then P1 and then P2, etc. and then back to P0 and so on and so forth. Next, let's say if the key is is not null, right? So let's assume that key not equal to null. So in this case, what happens? Then all messages that share the same key will always be sent and stored in the same Kafka partition. So how do you define which is the same key, right? So that we will talk about in the future video, where I'll be explaining about the key hashing. So a key can be anything to identify a message. It can be a string, it can be a numeric value, binary value, and so on, right? So Kafka message keys are commonly used when there is a need for message ordering for all messages sharing the same field. For example, let's take an example of tracking a truck, or you want to send a GPS location and things like that. So in that situation, we want to send the data from the truck to in an order. An individual truck should have a specific value. So what we will mention, we will have truck ID, right? Truck underscore ID. So this is a unique key across all the trucks we have. So we will have truck ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on and so forth. So we will be able to easily understand what is what data is sent by what truck, right? So that's why we use this in Kafka as well. Now we will dig more into this as when we start hands-on in the series as well. We will dig more on that. Next, let's understand Kafka message anatomy. So let's understand what is an anatomy of a Kafka message looks like. So Kafka message anatomy. So please ignore if I'm making spelling mistakes here and there. In the process of creating the video, I might go wrong as well. So a Kafka message anatomy looks something like this. Let me explain that in a better way. So let's take this example. Okay, so imagine this is a box where you have, as I told you, we will have key and the value as well. Okay, so we have the key and value, both can be null. So I'll just mention that as null. Okay, so these two types can be null. You know what is key and a value. So if you do not know already, Kafka messages are created by producers. A Kafka message consists of many elements, and we will talk about all of them. So firstly, key. So key is optional in Kafka message, and it can be null. A key may be a string, number, or any object, then and then the key is serialized into a binary format. So you might already know why we need binary format. If not, I'll explain that as well. Okay, so that is about key. Next, let's talk about value. So the value represents the content of the message and can also be null as well. So the value format is arbitrary and is also then serialized into binary format. That's about key and the value. Next, we have another important concept, which is compression type. So here we will have compression type. Now what is this compression type? So Kafka messages can be compressed, and the compression type can be none. So either you do not want to compress the message at all, then gzip, you can use gzip, and you can use snappy. Okay, then you have lz4, and then you have zstd. So these are the different types of compression that you can use in order to compress your messages. Then we have headers, which is very important. Okay, so we have headers, and then you will also have partition and offset. We will cover all of them in the set. Okay, so feel free to write this diagram and keep that somewhere, because you will be needing that in future as well, right? So let's talk about headers now. So there can be a list of optional Kafka message headers in the form of key value pairs. So it is common to have headers to specify metadata about the message, especially for tracing. So if you want to have some metadata to trace your data, to trace your message, then in that scenario you will have something called as headers, right? So that's the usual benefits of using headers. Then we have partition and offset. So once a message is sent to a Kafka topic, it receives a partition number and an offset ID. So otherwise, how would you understand where exactly your message is sent, right? So the combination of topic plus your partition plus your offset will help you to identify the message itself. Lastly, we have timestamp. So a timestamp is added either by the user itself or the system in the message. So either you can add your time, or the system can generate the system timestamp and then add that as well, right? So that's about the Kafka message anatomy. And let us also discuss about Kafka message serializers. We talked about serialization. So what do you mean by a serialization? Let's understand that and why it is important. So the topic is Kafka message serializers. Kafka message serializers. All right. So let's understand this. So in many programming languages, the key and value are represented as objects. So it greatly increases the code readability. I agree to that. However, Kafka brokers expect byte arrays as the key and the values of the message. So which I already mentioned in the first video that we created on the Kafka. So always remember that Kafka brokers expect you to send the data in byte array format. So this is very, very important for you. So the process of transforming the producer's programmatic representation of an object into a binary is called message serialization. So your client library can send the data in a different format, but you want to convert that and you want to represent the object in the binary format. And that you will be doing it with the help of a process called message serialization, which is very important. So let's take an example, right? So let's take this example. So let's say we have a key and we also have the value here. Okay, so the key is 1, 2, 3 and the value is ABC. Okay, so let's take this example. Here, if you see, we have the message with an integer key. So the key is integer and the string value is our value. So since the key is an integer, we have to use an integer serializer. In this scenario, I need to use integer serializer to convert this into a byte array format. For value, since it is the string, I need to use, any guesses? Take a pause and let me know in the comments. So for value, since it is string, we must use the string serializer, which converts the string into a byte array format. So it's that simple. So as part of Java client SDK for Apache Kafka, several serializers already exist, such as the string one that we discussed, the integer, float, and other serializers may have to be written by the users, but commonly distributed Kafka serializers already exist and are efficiently written for formats such as JSON schema, Avro, and protobuf. So it has been hugely developed, and all credits goes to Confluent Schema Registry. So they are pioneers in getting the serialization done. So that's about the message key, how things work behind the scene, Kafka message serializers. We also talked about the anatomy of the message. We understood the message keys and what are Kafka producers. So that's it for this video. If you are liking the content that I'm creating, please consider subscribing and share it with your friends. Thank you, and I will see you in the next one.